As you may know, I've been steadily building up a fully converted Space Marine army based around the Raptors Chapter, and up until this point I've mainly focused on infantry squads, so I thought it would be a good change of pace to tackle one of the characters instead. And what better character to take on than the chapter master of the Raptors himself, Lias Issodon. But before we do so, it's at this time of year that many of us take on a New Year's resolution to improve something about our lives. For me, that's learning German again. But kicking off that learning can be tricky, which is where Skillshare comes in, the sponsors of this video. Skillshare is an online learning platform that offers you a whole bunch, thousands in fact, of classes that cover a vast range of topics, from illustration design, photography and video, to marketing, business analytics and leadership. Everything is done at your own pace. There is no pressure to complete classes within a set time frame. There are no ads to interrupt your learning, and there are new classes being launched all the time. Plus, if you're completely new to a topic and aren't quite sure where to start, then Learning Paths have you covered. Skillshare has hand-picked classes in order to help guide you with your own exploration through a chosen topic. I've been wanting to integrate a little 3D modeling into some of my builds, and so the Build 3D Models and Animations with Blender Learning Path is perfect for me. Plus, the first 500 people to use my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so go check out that link down in the description and the comments to find out what Skillshare has to offer you. While I'll be running Lias as a Phobos captain in my army, I decided to base his model around the Phobos Lieutenant, partly because the model is a little less flamboyant and partly because I already had one to hand. However, as this model is only available in the Vanguard Task Force box, it might be easy to just use a different Phobos miniature. From this model, the parts required to build the torso, legs and combat knives were clipped away and cleaned up. Additionally, as I wouldn't be using the original arms, the small tabs at the shoulders were also removed and flattened out with a knife before gluing the torso and legs together. But before the combat knives were attached, the purity seal was clipped away and cleaned in the same way as the shoulder tabs. Whilst building this force, I've tried to limit the more ostentatious or decorative items, and this purity seal was one of them. However, as Lias is a chapter master, I did let him keep his skull and crossbones on his chest as a subtle nod to his rank. Known as the finest marksman in the chapter, it made sense to arm Lias with a weapon that matched his capabilities. So, one of the sniper rifles from the Eliminator's kit was sourced, the one without the scope to be specific. However, as this rifle doesn't have an upper arm, one was sourced from a spare infiltrator arm. The arm was then cut away just above the elbow so that only the shoulder remained. The lower arm attached to the rifle was then compared against the shoulder. A few more checks and adjustments were made to both until the two parts of the arm could fit together and against the torso. Once I was happy with how everything was lining up, the shoulder was glued to the torso, followed by the rifle arm. For the left arm, an arm was selected that matched up with the missing blade from the scabbard. This knife-wielding hand was taken from the Phobos Kill Team upgrade sprue and helped to create more of an authoritative pose for the miniature. This was then followed up by a regular Phobos shoulder pad. I've always been a fan of Reaver helmets, so when it came to picking a head, this seemed like the best option. However, as the Phobos Lieutenant's neck joint is a little more shallow than a Reaver's torso, the ball joints needed to be trimmed down and flattened out a little. Once things were fitting a little better, the head was glued to the torso, facing in the same direction of the knife. But I wasn't done with the head just yet. To help elevate this miniature's stature among the rest of my army, I decided to upgrade his optics. This was done by taking one set of goggles from the Brokia Thunderkin kit. For the most part, the goggles fit quite well over the Reaver helmet, but a little extra trimming was done to the inside just to help it fit. The head was then completed by gluing the goggles into place. Another variation from the base kit was the backpack. Instead of the grav chute equipped pack that the Lieutenant comes with, an infiltrator's backpack was attached instead. The aerials of this particular pack work well for conveying that tactical dominance that Lias is known for. Normally, this would be the point in the video where I add a plethora of pouches to the model, but the base kit was already pretty well laden. I did manage to squeeze in one extra small pouch though. By this point in the build, Lias was pretty much done, but the model didn't feel all that dissimilar from the rest of the army. While this makes sense from a practical, not painting a target on yourself sense, the model needed something that would offer some degree of separation from the rank and file. This would take the form of a cyber falcon. A bird was sourced from the Beast of Chaos Ravening Direflock Endless spell. After selecting and assembling one of the birds without a tail, one of the lenses from the Infiltrator's bolt carbine was clipped away. This was trimmed down and adjusted so it fit against the bird's head to create a cybernetic eye. To replace the missing tail, a leftover pipe from a Tempestus Scion servo skull would be used. Both this and the tail were trimmed until they could both be glued together before this new cybernetic tail was used to attach the falcon to Lias. This completed the build and left the model ready for painting. For the most part, the painting process remained the exact same as the rest of my Raptors, and I'd recommend checking out my previous Jump Pack Intercessor video for the full breakdown on what paints I used. However, as this was a character, I did allow myself a little more time on this model. By employing a glazing technique, I smoothed out a few of the red to green transitions and was also able to add some finer detail to the armor damage. For the bird, I settled on some earthy tones over the feathers and created a yellow beak and feet using some Iandan yellow contrast paint. Once the model was complete, I was left with this. And here we have the completed chapter master of the Raptors, Lias Issodon. With this build, my goal was to create something that still embodied the same aspects as the rest of the army, whilst also being unique and standing out just enough to mark him as a leader. And while the final model is still maybe a little too subtle, I think that it makes for a worthy leader of my army. This certainly won't be the last character for this army either. I have a few more ideas for some Gravis-based leader models still to come. If you enjoyed this build and haven't already checked out my previous Raptor videos, I'll include a playlist to those down in the description. And if you have any ideas for what I should include next, leave me your suggestions down in the comments below. My biggest thanks goes to you, my Patreon supporters and channel members who help to keep this channel going, especially my Pouch of Dead Animal Bits tier and above supporters who are Andrew Console, Axel Jonsson, Berserker, Daniel Dowling, Ian, Immaterial Creations, Maciej Savitsky, Matt Brower, Morgan, Mr. Grimm, Pale Juice, Plops of Corn, Ryan Little, Swedsman, and Tim. And my Sergeant level channel members who are Dare, Trooper Geo, Mr. Jared Hess 95, David, John Gibbs, The Sire Acquired, Philip Hoyer, Nerdington Paints, Mark Taylor, and Whale Tussler. If you are interested in supporting me as well, you can hit that join button below or find a link to my Patreon in the description. Supporters get a whole host of benefits, including ad-free access to my videos, sneak peeks, a private Discord channel, and exclusive merchandise. Speaking of merchandise, I also have a few t-shirts and mugs up for sale, featuring designs that have been drawn by me. You can check all of those out by following the links below or by heading on over to petethewargamer.com. So until next time, thanks for watching, and goodbye.